can jump in if she doesn't.
Awesome. Okay, then I will call the library board meeting to order at 5:02. Can I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Nelson.
Here.
Bergstrom.
Here.
Bunsenfield.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
And then Stata, Goblin, and Besham. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt or amend the agenda?
Is there an update that is needed?
I guess to adopt the agenda. I don't think we have.
No, it's already on the agenda, committee reports.
Oh, to make your report?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So moved, Jenny.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next is community input. Any community members have any input?
Thank you.
Okay. We always want to know what's available. So, next in the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. May I also add a comment? Incredibly well written. Who does these?
Laura.
I think a big kudos should go to Laura.
Excellent. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Let's see, can I have a motion to review and pay bills and accept financial reports? We'll do B and C together. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Jennifer?
And I'd like to add or make 2 points on the bills that might require an amended motion. So the amount for the M3 insurance, they had a surcharge for billing installments. The correct amount for that is now $12,898.75, so that's an updated amount. And then there's an addition we found out today that they actually want to install the bike and walking path and the story walk sooner rather than later. So we ordered the story walk today and a 50% down payment's due. So we're adding Barking Dog Story Walk Solutions in the amount of $28.19 to the bill voucher list to come out of the building fund. So would appreciate you including those 2 changes in the motion for approval.
Let's see, 1 second. So who made the motion?
I made the motion, so I didn't need to make a friendly amendment.
Is that okay?
I think so, yes. I
Are
would
you
propose
okay?
an amendment to include the 2 changes. Jennifer.
Second. You're okay with the second?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. For bills, I'm just looking if anything of note is on here. And I don't see anything. Are there any questions you have about anything that you see on the list?
So. Anything on the financial reports at all?
For the financial report, there's a couple accounts that are almost all spent, and those are just because they're items that are billed at the beginning of the year for the whole year typically. I don't really have anything else to note again on this, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
No.
All in favor of accepting the financial report and paying the bills with the 2 additions that Jennifer provided, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is the building project change order number 2.
All right, so this time there is a amount that we owe versus last month when we were saving money. All the change orders have been reviewed by Jeff Fine, our owner's representative, in collaboration with our architect. I'm just gonna take a quick peek through those. So there's 6 that are included here. There's some undercutting costs associated with the parking lot and the site work, which should be the final cost for that. There's some lentils for and brick blending for the upgrade of the building facade to brick. The ceiling trim metal is a cost cutting item that saves some money by just changing how the ceiling
The transfer between the ceilings. It's pretty common.
And then the column extensions is to extend the columns up. I'm not sure why that needed to be done, but there was a issue there that they're just basically extending them to the ceiling differently. And so the net of all the change orders is just over $32,000 in additional costs. That fits within our contingency budget we're using to pay for change orders, and that budget is still in good condition as of today. This is the second change order at this point.
Comment?
Yeah.
Found it fascinating, they were talking about individual lag screws. Seriously.
That's how, that,
There's a change order request from Dennis Lennox to Trident Builders to change lag bolts, lag screws.
that's how good Jeff is at his job. He makes them so paranoid about sending them a change order that they have to literally list out everything that they're changing.
So you would say that's a good sign?
I would say that's a good sign that they're scared of Jeff.
No, I think it's great, it's just like, really? Lag screws? Okay, that's good.
I should also note that the Mason change order should have actually been more expensive, but the Mason donated some of the change order costs in kind, and that's a local Mason.
That's nice.
Crowley Masonry, so just recognizing that in-kind donation by community member.
So are there any other questions or things we can better explain?
I was just not at all understanding about the,
So some of the details, especially when they went to change from the masonry to the others, not all the details were necessarily 100% drawn when they sent it out to bid.
Okay.
So there's some changes for details on how they attach columns and do some of those things that were a little better clarified.
Okay.
And that's usually when I get change orders at that point. So that's what that is. That's just a detail on how to change the connection point.
I thought perhaps, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir, answer.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I guess I would take a motion to approve change order number 2. Anybody's okay making that?
So moved?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Information items, so committee reports is first.
Yeah, so nominating committee, I have not heard from Carlene on this at all. I think she was really busy with the election and it probably fell between the cracks, and that's okay. It's not super labor intensive, and thanks to all of you who responded so quickly on the survey. I got it back with no issues from anyone. I didn't have to follow up with anyone, which I really appreciate. I wonder if I should hold off on making my suggestions until Laura and Coral are here, because my suggestions affect them. That would be my suggestion, and I don't think it's super. What do you?
We can wait till next month. We don't need to make them until the June meeting for the annual meeting, but people might appreciate a time
I
or two
can
ahead
still,
of time, so.
yeah,
that's
I
fine. We
can
do
still
that May.
say what I think that we should do for the board next year. Because Jenny, your name came up several times that you should continue to be president by people who I don't think realize that your term is up. Everyone said you're doing a great job, but Jenny does need to step down.
Otherwise we have to change the bylaws, so,
Yeah.
which we had to do the
I was
last time.
gonna say, I thought we already did that.
We
Yes.
did it once, so that I would stay on for this year, so we'd have to vote again to change the bylaws for me to stay on for next year as well. So we figured it made sense at this point that I would probably, because I think I would be the vice president no matter what, because I'm the
Yes,
longest serving
board
member, which you're automatically the vice president unless you're the president. So the thought would be that I would step down from president, be the vice president this year, just so that we don't have to vote to change the bylaws. I do appreciate everyone's confidence, I appreciate that a lot, but we do want to try to get back to what we're supposed to be following.
Exactly. So what I was going to suggest is what Jenny just said, is that she would step down to vice president since she is the longest serving member. That's what our bylaws say, is that the longest serving member is automatically the vice president. So Jenny would be vice president. And then I would suggest Laura Stata as our new president. She and Coral have been on the board the same amount of time, but Coral does not feel she can take that on at this time. And so my suggestion would be Laura Stata to be our new president. Carlene would be happy to stay on as secretary, so I recommend her continuing on with that and Coral continuing on as treasurer. It's as simple as that. So.
That's good. May, we can repeat just to make sure with our rest of our team,
Sure.
when we're all here,
Mhm.
and then in June, we'll actually do the voting, just so everybody kind of knows the steps, so. And feel free to reach out to Laura if you have questions or anything from that. Awesome, thank you. Sure. Are there other committee reports, Jennifer?
I still need to schedule a personnel committee meeting, so I will really be doing that, but I just didn't want to schedule it and then not be ready for it. So, watch for that email in the next week or so. That'll hold me accountable to get it going. And then building committee hasn't met.
Okay, next is the 2023 year-to-date statistics report.
So that's just, we try to do that every month or every other month at least, just highlighting our statistics. There's a number of statistics that have really increased since the pandemic was over, many rebounding almost to what they were pre-pandemic, which is great. There's a few like computer use that's significantly lower than it was before the pandemic, but then also some like Wi-Fi and other uses that are actually higher. So kind of a mix of different statistics, but in general the trend is kind of back to where we were business as usual before 2020 happened.
Excellent. Any questions on that? Okay. Board continuing education.
Just because of all the concerns about books and censorship in the news, we're doing a monthly continuing education topic. This month is the ALA Freedom to View Statement, which we endorse as part of our collection development policy that our board approved. And so I just included that as an informational item for you to be aware of that. And as always, if you have questions or want to discuss something further, we can absolutely do that. But just in case you're asked about or concerns are shared with you, you've had that information.
Are there requests to actually remove certain books from the collection?
There's no issues in Oregon at this point. There's conversations kind of nationwide, and then even in Dane County, there's some communities where titles in libraries have been kind of popular recent issues. So we're just trying to be proactive about having conversations before we are forced to have them.
Thank you.
Library director's report.
Alright, so there is very fun thing is National Volunteer Week is coming up, so we have all sorts of volunteers, from our board members here to our Friends of the Library board to our weekly volunteers or daily volunteers at the library, to all sorts of committees and folks that have helped with the library project in all sorts of ways. So I was starting to list them and I was realizing that there were so many that I'd leave somebody out, so just a big thank you to everybody who's volunteered in any way. The Friends appropriately are having their book sale on Saturday at the Youth Center from 9 to 3, so stop by if you want some good deals on books or know anybody, feel free to share the word. We got our new self-checks on Monday the 3rd, so that we can kind of get used to them before we move to the new library. We had a few things to iron out, but Alicia coordinated that and did an amazing job, and the customers have really liked the new equipment. It's been like, this is great, this is easy. So
I got to use it today.
it's great. What do you think?
I love it. It looks great. It's very smooth. Yeah.
So I think that'll be good, be one less new thing when we move, so that's exciting. We do have a closure morning on next Tuesday. We have our staff in service, so we'll close for the morning and then reopen after that. Also, we'll talk about this a little later. The South Central Library System is moving their offices, which will impact our services because of moving their data center, which means we'll have no network, internet, no access to most of our services that require computers or technology. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. A couple village notes. The village is working on updating the employee handbook, which is very important and has been in needed for a while. So we're excited that Martin has sent out 2 drafts to employees for review at this point. Our staff is taking it seriously, made some great suggestions, which he's incorporated many of into the handbook for clarification. So we're looking forward to that being adopted. Once it is adopted, there's a few things that are a little weird because the library board has certain powers statutorily. So what we'll do is we'll have you adopt the handbook, and then we'll make a few points about things that either need clarification or that we may handle differently, like exit interviews or things like that, and might, undo previous action that we took to put something into place that wasn't addressed in the handbook. So we'll try to do a short, succinct document that kind of addresses all those points, and then provide that to the village so that there's a clear documentation of that. The election results came through, so Phil Van Campen will be the new village president starting on the 18th. And then the trustees that are elected include Carleen from our board, Jason Mankey, and Derek Belo. I also included a link to some drone footage. If you haven't had a chance to view that, you should see that. It's from the 24th. It's kind of fun to see how the project is evolving.
It's really fun to watch. That makes me happy.
Laura did a nice Final Four vote for library visitors on their favorite chairs and what they thought was most comfortable. And alarmingly, it was very close to what our staff and other folks that have shared feedback with us have said. So that's exciting and kind of gives us some guidance on which pieces of furniture that we'll be looking for. And then we also had our staff vote on a paint color for the staff break room, so they got to choose what they wanted. So thanks to Laura for coordinating that also. They chose a blue. It's called, I can't remember, it has a fun name, but I can't remember.
Did you say blue?
It's a blue.
Nice.
I can't remember the name.
That's okay.
Just curious. And then we got some preliminary pricing on office furniture, which was very favorable. We've submitted some shelving to 2 companies for pricing, and we're waiting to hear back on that. So hopefully that will, fingers crossed, will also come out. I also have included quarterly reports for our managers, and we've made a change to that so that each month when they're reporting on things that they're doing for their department, they're also indicating how that ties in with their strategic plans. You'll see which strategic plan goal their activities are supporting, and then at the end of the year we'll kind of compile that report. We'll also be sharing this with our staff so that they're more aware of what's going on in the work that we're doing in support of the strategic plan. But each department has such a neat and unique focus. So there's a lot, as you can see it's 4 pages long, there's a lot going on right now. And then I'm gonna just talk about, this kind of goes into the next agenda item, the congressionally directed spending. We were finally able to learn of the requirements for receiving the funding that's been designated but not obligated yet. And so there's a very extensive application process and documentation process that we're going through to meet those requirements. There are some new requirements that were not shared with us until now, and we meet many of them, but there's 2 that could potentially be a challenge. And one is the Buy America, Build America Act, which just went into place for projects that are funded by the USDA after February. So even though we applied before the requirement went into place for them, that's something that could be a barrier to receiving the funding. We're trying to work through that with USDA and also with Senator Baldwin's office, but we're gonna get everything ready, submit everything, get all our ducks in a row. The other item is you're not supposed to start construction, which we were not notified of prior to now, so we're providing additional documentation like our contracts and things, our specifications and things to document that. So we are working really hard to get that funding, but I just want you to be aware of those challenges should it not come through for any reason. We want you to know that we're doing everything we can with it.
The village staff has been very helpful.
They've been amazing.
And they've been a part of a lot of the conversations, and Jennifer's reached out to Tammy Baldwin's office. They have a whole team, because we're not the only group that's struggling with these requirements, so they're trying to work with the USDA and other to kind of help pave the way a little bit better to be able to let the the government agencies that are, requested the money had it approved to actually be able to obtain it. So, so there's been some really good work done. It is really, there's a lot of stuff, so they've been working really hard trying to get everything put together to put us in the best position as possible, so. Other questions about that we can answer?
So there are some other libraries that have faced these same challenges and have been funded?
It's not just libraries, it's many other organizations. So I think when we talked to the day after I had the phone call, I scheduled a conference call with the USDA staff member and our finance director and village administrator because I wanted them to hear the same information I was getting.
Right.
So we all heard the same information. And he had said the previous day he had at least 4 projects that he had notified the previous day that had the same circumstances that we were in. So it's not unique to us. I think partially with the rules changing kind of mid-process, that's a natural thing. But right now there's nothing in place. It's unclear if there's a method to navigate that or not. So
And unfair.
everybody's done really great. So hopefully we'll be able to work through it, and if not, at least they'll understand, have that good feedback, so they can better prepare future applicants to be positioned to be successful. So.
That's also partially why we were trying to not kind of go too public with it initially, right? Because we knew that there was going to be something that had to be done. We didn't really expect necessarily some of these added rules, but there's usually things that you have to do in order to actually get the money that's appropriated. So
Right.
we're just trying to do what we can. So.
And so the village said that as long as they know they need to do by September, they could still do the borrowing in time for our project. And the federal funding wants to be the last funding on the project, so that we would still be able to proceed the same way and just would need to adjust accordingly. But hopefully we won't need to use those dollars in that way. So we'll see. So.
And the grant was initially basically just replacing the money that the village kind of said, hey, we'll cover it. The grant will pay us back essentially, because just so that we knew we had the money when we started. So we don't have to worry about not being able to finish our project or anything like that. It's just the money on the back end that was going to go back to the village. So. Any other questions? All right, we have great news today, let me tell you. So, is there anything else, Jennifer, for your report?
No.
But also thank you to you, because you and your team have just been putting so many things together and doing things. So we appreciate all that extra work. Communications, village board announcements. Carlene's not here. I guess probably the biggest thing is the elections. So getting the new staff all together and new board members and getting them all organized. So is there anything else from any meetings that you think we would want to share? I don't think so. School board, school district announcements?
Sure, lots of great things. I'll highlight though that on Monday night, the school board passed a resolution supporting specific things that are needed from the state budget for school systems throughout Wisconsin, because as part of the referendum, we told our community we would continue to advocate for the state to do its part in funding of public schools. So the board passed a resolution that asks for the special education funding gap to be reduced with an increase of a reimbursement rate of 31% to at least 60%. Providing recurring funds rather than one-time grants for services for students who have specific needs, such as mental health support, students living in poverty, early childhood learning, bilingual support, and have it be accessible and non-competitive, so that it was actually built into the budget that the state gives school systems, and to increase in the revenue limits to at least $1,000 per student over the course of this next biennium. And then to not increase the number of private school, allocations for private school vouchers until public schools have been supported in the way that is necessary. So that is not advocacy, it is simply, this is what schools need from the state budget. And what we're hoping is that all of Dane County does this together so that we can send a unified voice, and that smaller districts throughout the state who don't have communications directors or who don't have some of the things that Dane County schools have can utilize some of our talking points in helping their legislators to understand what schools need from the state budget.
Thank you. Anything else you wanna share? Big
I
fun?
think that can be it for now.
Awesome. There's a lot of cool things going on in the school district, so we thank you for all that you're doing. Next is the JSD proposal for required documentation for CDS funding.
So one of the elements that we need to do is a report, that's an 8-page, it has 8 pages of instructions, and JSD is our engineer and landscape architect, and they are best positioned to provide and compile that information. It's kind of in their area of expertise. And so this is their proposal, on a time and materials basis, not to exceed this amount, to compile that information for us. And so my recommendation, I talked to Martin about this, and our recommendation would be that we need to do this to be able to be positioned to get that grant, and so the recommendation would be to approve to proceed with it.
Otherwise, I take a motion to approve the proposal from JSD.
I will move to support the proposal.
Second,
I would say.
any questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, authorization of SCLS to submit adjacent county reimbursement. This is where people give us money, so this is a good one.
So each year, we're entitled to be reimbursed by adjacent counties for library service, which we provide to their residents who live in areas of the county that do not support their own libraries. They don't necessarily pay taxes to a library, but then they use our library, and so there's reimbursement given to us. There is a delay. It's based on data from the previous annual reports. The money we get in '24 will be based on services provided in 2022. So that'll be a little bit hard when we move to the new library and our services increase and our budget increases, but there's a 2-year lag. So just a heads up for then. But SCLS can, that's our library system, they can do the billing for us, which saves us time and is more efficient. And so we do want them to provide the billing for us. And we do, in this case, want to bill all of the counties. Every once in a while, there's an amount that's very small, or for some reason you might not wish to bill for, but my recommendation would be to approve this and indicate we want to bill, yes, we do want to bill all of the counties listed.
Is that in the form of a motion?
I can't make motions, but yes, you could make that.
I'd make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Any questions? That's great. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Declaration of surplus property.
So we are declaring as surplus the 2 old self-check machines that are obsolete.
Do we just go to trash, or like what happens with them?
We are sending them to a company called File 13. They used to be in Berlin. I think they might be in Madison now, but they do responsible recycling of e-waste. And so they'll take them and recycle them responsibly for us.
Or did you want to put your house or anything? You can like check things out as you go. Can I have a motion to declare the 2 kiosks as surplus?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
I love the name. File 13.
Right? Makes you wonder what else they do in there. Summer page LTE positions and hours.
So as a library board, we have the authority to determine our library positions and compensation for those positions, which also includes setting responsibilities and number of hours. So in our annual budget each year, we budget for 2 limited term employment page positions, which means those employees work in the summer only. And they come and do things like shelving materials, checking things in, emptying our book drop, just a variety of other tasks. We want to continue to have those hours, only this year we would like to get the flexibility to either hire new employees as budgeted, or to fill them with a combination of hiring LTE employee and splitting some hours amongst existing staff who may wish for extra hours over the summer. And so we're just asking you for the flexibility to fill it either way. So there's a recommendation at the bottom that I would recommend your approval if that's something that you're in agreement with.
I made the last motion.
You willing to make this one?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to allow to hire 2 LTE pages and then to split the other pages, or to kind of allow the staff to use those hours as possible as needed for the summer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Library services and hours, May 27th and May 30th, due to South Central Library System temporarily suspending network services.
So our library system is moving their headquarters on Memorial Day weekend, and they're moving their data center and technology services as part of that. So their whole staff will be working the whole 4-day holiday weekend to try to get everything switched over. But during the move, they anticipate pretty much every internet and database and resource we have will be unavailable in the library, with a few exceptions. So for us, we don't have any other internet service to the library. We rely on BadgerNet, which is hosted through them, which means we would not be able to look up a book for a patron. We wouldn't be able to check somebody out. We wouldn't be able to place a hold. They wouldn't be able to use our computers. So, you know, it would be challenging to be open without making folks feel frustrated about the things that they couldn't do. It's also holiday weekend, and we tend to be a lot less busy on that Memorial Day Saturday than we are on other Saturdays throughout the year. And so while we hate being closed, we are recommending that this might be one time where, because of the network outages, that we would like the flexibility to be closed on Saturday for sure, and then have the flexibility to be closed on that Tuesday, or if the services are available earlier, that we could reopen if they were available at noon and we had staff, then we could reopen earlier, but just to have that flexibility if they are not available. We will try to use the time staff will all be able to, if this is approved, staff will all be able to work their regular hours, and we'll work with them to make sure they have tasks that don't require internet, so things that'll help us get ready for moving, just things that they don't ever have time for otherwise. We'll also use a little bit of the time to do some training preparation for our summer reading program, so we'll have constructive things for them to do, but just won't be able to efficiently and fully serve patrons. So thought that it might be a good time to pause services. Any questions?
Make a motion?
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
I should just mention too that you might see a few libraries that are open, and that will be either like Madison is on the city internet, and so because they have city internet, they may be able to provide some of these services and remain open. There's also some libraries that may choose to be open because they're smaller and they can do offline circulation and doesn't have quite the volume. So you're going to see various responses from libraries. So I just want you to be aware of that in case someone asks while we're closed and somebody else isn't. It's an individual library of choice.
Next, naming opportunities and sponsorship agreement.
So there are 2 items in the memo. We're just gonna look at the first one, which is a sponsorship agreement enclosed. So you see just an agreement for a sponsor of a study room and then a special shelving area. So I would recommend approval of that agreement for that individual. And then we can chat about naming opportunities a little bit more if we like.
So can I have a motion to approve the community room? Is that the one you're looking
No,
at?
that's when we're skipping. The sponsorship agreement for the study room and the special bookcase in the lobby.
Can I have a motion for that approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. And then this, do you want to talk about this? The other sponsorship stuff or naming opportunities?
I think the other part on that one, we're gonna postpone till next month, because when everybody's here and we wanna just do a little bit more follow-up work on that one. Is there anything else about naming opportunities? The So the challenge we're kind of having is that when we started fundraising, a lot of our opportunities were set very high because of the amount of money we were trying to raise. And so some of the spaces that we have are higher than you would normally see in communities of our size, and not necessarily matching up with some of our highest donations, you know, and the frequency of those donations. We, then with the change of plans, it got a little bit difficult because we had different spaces than we did, you know, when we had the first concept plan after fundraising. And then adding or changing opportunities is super delicate because we don't want to do anything that would not honor the leadership and the generosity of somebody who's already chosen an opportunity. So in theory, we'd love to add 50 more opportunities, but we also don't want to do anything that doesn't respect what's already there. So it's become a really challenging thing. So
there's some numbers at the top that we want to talk about, maybe lowering or revising or some things like that, just to kind of see. And we have had some conversations with some other donors that are kind of at the higher levels already, just to kind of help feel out some of their, what they, you know, are you okay kind of with what you've already done? Would you be wanting to change? So we've had some of those conversations, but we just want to have kind of a broader topic with as many people as we can, just so we kind of get the input and kind of can move forward with some of those final donation requests and possibly, you know, maybe get more. We'll see, but that's kind of, yeah.
The folks you've spoken with, are they comfortable with the concepts?
yeah, so we have, people are pretty happy. Some people don't want recognition. Some people have chosen something and really love what they've chosen because they chose it for a great reason, right? So that's really happy to see people be really passionate about it. So, yeah, I think we have some really amazing donors, so we're lucky to have that. So.
We have not upset anyone. Okay.
At least not that I know of.
We're trying not to.
We're trying not to.
That was my biggest
Yeah.
concern.
No, so far the people that we've talked to are, you know, yeah, like Jennifer said, excited about what they chose, and they chose it for usually a specific
Sentimental,
reason. So,
yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that next month. Okay. And then the next is the preliminary design concepts for the new library graphics and donor recognition signage. So this is really exciting.
So, on page, well, I'll back up a second. So we have some money in our project budget for two elements. One is donor recognition, because community contributions has been so important to our projects that we have always known that we want to have a donor wall installed on our opening day, and we had parameters about what getting on that donor wall, you know, would look like, and then how we'd recognize all our gifts, even if they didn't meet that threshold. And then we have some additional funding set aside for some graphical elements, like that will hopefully make the library have more of a special feel to it. And so we asked Tycee, we had approved the donor wall proposal, and so Tycee prepared a preliminary concept design for that for us. And then just we worked with them to identify a couple other opportunities that we would like to move forward with, and then we're trying to get some pricing on some additional opportunities to see if we could afford it, or to just have it out there that if we get, we could raise money for it, or potentially achieve it in the future if we wanted to do that. On page 68 of your packet is their preliminary design for the donor recognition wall for the lobby. So we're sharing that to you tonight to get any feedback you have on that. They are going to then proceed with getting us a cost estimate and kind of, you know, looking at the materials and trying to figure out what the logistics of it would look like. And then they'll also give us a time frame so we can tell the community to get this, you know, installed on our grand opening day. Then we need, you know, any additional gifts or names, you know, has to be verified by this day to make sure we get it all right and correct for folks. So I guess we'd be open to any suggestions you have on the donor wall. So the donor wall would be located as you come in the library on the right side as you enter, and it'll also be on the hallway as you go to the elevator or the community room, so it'll be very, very visible. And then if we were to be able to leave the community room accessible after hours, that would still be visible after hours in that little hallway alcove. And then in this concept, they kind of incorporated the blue wall around the corner by adding the current library logo and our mission statement to that wall, which is shown a little bit more on page 72. You can kind of see the end on the left side, the end of the donor wall wrapped around. I have printout copies if anybody wants to look at a printout copy as well.
It's really pretty.
It's really good.
And the cool thing about the Oregon Public Library, it won't line up with windows on the outside, but it'll be lit, so it'll be like, so as you drive by, you'll be able to see through the windows, you know, all the time during the night. So it'll provide kind of an interior sign as well, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool.
I like it.
So you're pretty excited about that. We did talk about at the, like on the donor wall, instead of geese, maybe having cranes, or, you know, we haven't gotten right to that level of detail, but you can kind of see how there's like the background of some plants in nature, and then we thought maybe something a little bit more with the grasses and the animal, you know, the birds that you might see around the library, but it was a really great conversation, and they like are super creative, awesome people to work with, so
Yeah.
this is
Yeah, I
general-
love how the
general
design
research.
spills from the wall to the piece that actually has the names on it. It's really neat.
Yeah.
And the sign itself is kind of built in pieces, so if in the future we change our logo, we change our motto, like all of that can kind of be fixed in the future with some minimal wall patching too. So they tried to bring up some, you know, come up with ways that it's flexible if we need to in the future.
Looks
Generally,
awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
this is
I
great.
like it.
Awesome. And this picture kind of shows, I mean, even as you walk in, right, that's gonna be one of the first things that you see, so. And go to the children's area.
So the children's area starts on page 76. So that kind of shows what the space is to look like. So there's kind of some built-in tables that are intended for kind of the middle age groups, like maybe first through third graders kind of areas. So the children's area is kind of in like stages, and so there's kind of going to be an area where the younger kids will play. This is kind of where we're going to have our movies, but they'll kind of be closer to the middle level fiction, and then we'll kind of have an area towards the wall towards the entrance to the children's area. That'll be more for older kids, kind of as they're progressing up towards the teen area and kind of moving towards that center of the library area. We've talked about during the building committee about this kind of being, trying to do something with nature to kind of tie that into this wall, and then just trying to bring a graphical element. This is a very visible area as you come into the children's area that you can kind of see from everywhere. They came up with a first concept, and then we have some comments that we shared that they'll take this kind of the next level, like they did the donor wall. So we're very open to your feedback tonight. They chose a quote, "Reading is a passport to countless adventures," by Mary Pope Osborne. Kelly, our children's librarian, likes that quote, but she's also going to explore if there's other quotes that might be appropriate as well. So one of the things that they plan to do is to move that wording above to the white part of the wall, so that'll open up that part above the shelving for some more space for some more fun graphics.
So kind of up here instead.
So one of the goals is just to have this be a very vibrant, fun, welcoming, playful, whimsical kind of space for kids. If you go to the image on page 78, their image is kind of a book with a rocket coming out of it, and then there's some tree, butterfly, clouds, some more natural elements. I talked to Kelly today, and she thought maybe it was the rocket ship. That didn't feel like it felt with a nature theme. So she had an idea about having the bicycle come out of the book instead of the rocket, and get rid of the rocket part, and then tie in some more in.
So I'm glad she saw it.
So that was one of the comments, is that they did, if you look at the right side of their concept design, they have a bicycle kind of, kind of following the idea of the path around the library, and kind of symbolizing kind of a journey, and then you see that they have signage for two of the village parks. So they have Keller Alpine and JC Park. We did let them know that they're thinking about changing the name of JC Park, so that we're going to have them put Lerner Park Conservation Park on instead if we keep that design element, because it is right next to the library, so it'd be kind of a neat, directional tie-in. So the conversation that we had with them is that we want to have it, kind of capitalize on what they've started with, connecting to what's already at that site and that location, that place, and kind of building on that. So trying to make it even more, to make it fit and tie more closely with the site. So I think comments were that, the other comment is you see the blue wall there, and so we asked that if they could kind of include that area and kind of make it more, to have more space, so kind of start on the left of that area and go all the way around. And then to the right of the wall you're seeing is the story time room, which has glass doors that can open up to make it kind of an extension of the children's area. And so the idea would be that they would use some vinyl, I don't know if vinyl's the right word.
Oh, make it go all the way.
Yeah, so
Oh, that's
tie the graphics in
Yeah, like
towards
into
the window. And so we talked about maybe incorporating some more native or like prairie plants or flowers or things like that. Maybe, you know, the crane idea came up, bees or butterflies or birds kind of came up. So we kind of asked if they could kind of evolve this and take those elements and expand on those. And then Kelly suggested that if we, you know, there was a talk about starting the bicycle on one side, making it look like it's going kind of on a journey. And so she suggested maybe we switch the rocket out with the bicycle to make it more nature tie-in, and that still has that popping out of a book idea that they have. But we will share Kelly's thought, but also your thoughts. We have a meeting on Monday to kind of share some of those ideas. I guess.
think it would be really great to make sure that we're depicting native plants
Yeah.
and such in both of them. Because there's been such effort to ensure that we're blending into the native surroundings. So
I agree.
The one question I have, with the passport quote, it kind of, you know, the travel theme is sort of involved there. And are there other travel types of
I think
venues besides bicycling? I mean, the rocket ship's a little extreme, like,
Yeah, we thought the bicycle made sense with the ability, since we're putting the bike path around the library and we're incorporating it kind of in that space. I mean, and we figured it's kind of a more natural kind of path through there. Maybe we can look and ask them if there's other modes of transportation that we wanna.
Maybe like a hiker. I'm just thinking like other more like green modes of transportation, right? Human powered.
I don't know if you would necessarily want a skateboard, but maybe.
Maybe, so we can look at, see if maybe some of those.
I do like the hiker piece, you know, they could have the poles or something
Yeah.
to show that they're
Yeah, that's
hiking.
kind of what I was picturing, like a walking stick. And
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Awesome.
I do, yes, I like that. Kind of like the Oregon Library Trail.
There you go.
The other thing that came to mind for me is like, since Oregon is known as like the horse capital of the world, do we want to incorporate horses at all? I don't know. Jenny says no.
No?
I have no personal stake in horses. I'm just.
No. I mean, we can look at it. We've talked about like trying, and one thing we did actually talk about, Jennifer, maybe we can, is we've said that maybe the different rooms, like study rooms that we have, it might make sense to try to tie some of the, like, we would have one room that's the, you know, the prairie room. We would have another room that's we actually did talk about horses, right? Like, just things that might tie Oregon together is take some, like, some cool pictures or something and make that as almost a wallpaper on the back wall.
Sure.
And so that would be, I think, a place that we could tie some of those things in. We talked, you know, what makes Oregon, right? Sometimes
Exactly.
the water tower,
Yeah.
sometimes so we're just trying to see, yeah, so we wanna honor where we are. So there's some of those locations are some of the things that we kind of
Right.
talked about too, so.
Yeah. Great.
Things that are iconic to our community.
Right. Things that make Oregon Oregon and not just any small Wisconsin town, right?
Right.
So we've kind of talked
Yeah.
about seeing what we can do to kind of honor some of those things too. We know that we are required to have nature graphics and education and those type of things in the library per our MOU. So that this is one of those ways that we wanted to do it. And there, Ticey's looking at ways that, you know, possibly on some of the columns, do we have like, you know, little like informational things that we can switch out? Or do we look outside and put signage outside of, this is why we have this garden, this is what, so we're trying to kind of see what we can do after we get these kind of set with the rest of the money
Forest
that we
Edge
have.
would be a good place.
That's it, I told them I
consider.
should go
Oh,
on
yeah.
a walkabout.
And it's probably gonna be not just a one and done, but a ongoing thing. So in addition to like programming, like Kelly had some really great ideas about, we could, sometimes the story walk could be, you know, it could be animal themed or it could be plant themed, and we could have, you know, can you find this bird and this is what this bird is kind of thing. We could do backpacks that you can check out with binoculars and, you know, species that you can identify or go on a nature, you know, adventure outside the library. So there's lots of ways that we can try to tie things in an ongoing basis.
Further walk outside.
Yep,
Cool.
grab a backpack and go see what you can, go on an adventure, right?
So there might be like stations along the path type of
We
thing?
have the,
Yeah, so one of our donors sponsored the Story Walk, so there'll be 20 posts spaced around just the bypass loops, not the original path, but the little loop that connects around the library so that
Okay.
people can choose to go that extra distance or not. And so those are conducive to taking basically a picture book, and then you can kind of walk between the posts and then read the whole story with your kids or as an adult or whatever. In lieu of a picture book, we can also, you know, alternate with other things. So it could be posters of events, it could be community activity, it could be, you know, educational component. We could do, you know, did you know, and different things. There's lots of opportunity there. So it's really exciting to see that. It just, we're trying to connect the nature with this mural, but there's a lot of other elements that we can do that too. Because this area is also a lot of it's very high or very narrow, so it's kind of hard
We wanna make
to
sure the
put
kids
information.
Would it be possible to represent anything about that nature walk outdoors on the graphic here at the children's area? I mean, would that tie-in be repetitive or?
We can think about it for sure. Kelly was using the term like a nature adventure. So like, I think like if we make it feel like it's something that makes kids wanna, kind of inspires them and makes them wanna like just find the fun in it, I think that's a really good direction to go.
Okay.
And people that are more creative than I am hopefully can get us to that
Right, exactly.
part. But just like, you know, kind of when you look at the bicycle, you can kind of see the movement, and I like the signs that, you know, say parks that are actually right there in Oregon. And so like, I think if we can really connect it and make it kind of a
an adventure.
adventure, yeah.
Exciting.
So does this kind of, any other feedback or thoughts? There was included in the packet just some thoughts initial thoughts they had on some potential room signage or donor signage. We're still working through that. There is some signage included with the contractor, so trying to find out, you know, how we want to necessarily designate rooms, or if we want to just use room signs and have a secondary designation. These are just some preliminary kind of ideas, so.
The only thing about this is like some of the donors like have a space in honor or in memory of somebody, and so when you add that text, it gets kind of long to fit in a small space. So we just want to make sure that the donor signage is making donors feel special and recognized and doesn't, you know,
Feel like it's.
seem to be like minimized. And so that might be something that we include on the same sign and make the sign bigger. It might be something that we pull out. We're trying to still work through that. So any thoughts you have on that would be welcome. And the donors you see listed here are examples, so they're not necessarily the person sponsoring that space in these cases.
Well, they're good people, I mean,
Yeah, but one of the spaces is sponsored by somebody else, I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Like, like somebody
We
that is there.
don't-
Kind of
there's
looks-
good names, so, just examples. So, but
Okay.
Tyce's been a great partner. They're super excited to do something local and be a part of what we're doing, so, so that's been a great partnership so far, so.
And there are some other, the beginning of the packet, there are some other areas. If we had an endless budget, there'd be lots of other opportunities to do more spaces. We don't really have an endless budget, so we're trying to prioritize what spaces will have the greatest impact and start from there. And then again, like we said, if there's a concept that we think is cool but we can't afford now, it could be we want to raise money for it, or maybe in 5 years we can revisit it. But just having that concept there might help us realize it. And if it doesn't happen, that's, you know, we just want to be thoughtful about how we spend our money with them as well. We don't want to waste it. So. Any other thoughts on what you're seeing here?
Well, that is the last item on our agenda. So our next meeting is Wednesday, May 10th. Are there any future agenda items anybody wants to add? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
moved.
Second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you guys very much for being here.
Thank you, that was exciting to see some of these things like, wow. It's really right there.
I should tell you that next month we will probably